I think that's our cue. The sound effects are down. That's our cue. So here I have assembled billions of dollars of advertising spend, and Ashton hates you all. We talk backstage. He doesn't hate advertising. He just hates advertising that interrupts and gets in the way of the flow of the story. And I think what we're talking about now for the next little while, and I hope all of you will please tweet questions to this august panel via the hashtag NF11 so that we can get it up on the monitor here, and I will incorporate your questions. But I think what we're going to talk about here is how do marketers start to not just buy adjacency to great stories and interrupt those stories and then try to tell their own, but rather start to integrate into them in ways that are not only natural but add value to them, or tell their own stories in ways that are natural and add value and become a service to a consumer or a value add to a consumer as opposed to an interruption and an irritation, as Ashton put it. So you saw everybody here on stage. We have three major CMO, SVP marketing folks, and we have a founder of Magnify, which is a major content, particularly video play, and author of Curation Nation, which is one of my favorite book titles of the year. So I'm going to start with a question for all of you and let you answer as you wish, which is to ask Mark's initial question when he introduced the whole NewFront, which is, are you ready to allow your customer, your consumer, or your prospect to take control of your brand? Are you down with that concept?
You have to be. I mean, yes, and not only are we ready, we actively want it to happen. We hope it happens. So I think what we're in search of are what are those, everybody loves this word authentic, but what are those authentic moments, those kind of moments of discovery where a potential customer or consumer says, wow, I didn't know that about GE. I've learned something new. I've consumed a piece of content that tells me something, and it's relevant, and I'm going to do something with that information.
Right, right. Susan?
So I'd say it's no different today than it's been in the history of marketing. Consumers have always owned the brands. Consumers have always talked about our brands. Consumers always render opinions about our brands, and they either promote it or they don't. Now there's just a medium for us to see that in real time, and that's the only difference. So as marketers, Susan and I were talking about this morning, we've been trained that we have to control the communication about the brand, and it's really the opposite. It's really about giving the best experience to the consumer so they control the conversation.
Susan, do you have a point of view on this?
Well, I totally agree with what's been said, but I think what we're also looking at is using our customers themselves and their stories as the way to tell our story, because it's so much more powerful than just talking. And I think the whole idea of brands as publishers is to relinquish the control and change it to a dialogue.
So I'm really glad I don't have any of their jobs, because I think it's easy to say, of course we want our customers to be part of the story and we want to embrace them. But if you look at what's changed in just the last 2 years, the volume of content that is pouring onto the web is so staggering, and we're all so overwhelmed, and marketers in their DNA are trained to be able to buy mind share. I mean, that's what we learned how to do through the whole evolution of mass media. And one of the things that I think is really exciting and complicated about the moment we're in is that as people start to talk about your brand, not only will they say things you don't agree with, but they'll say things you don't like, and they'll say them without having to ask permission. And so I think that the default position is exactly the right one, which is you absolutely have to embrace the conversation because it's going to happen whether you want it to or not. But I think that it's likely that the conversation is going to be wilder and woollier than any of us imagine.
Well, I'd actually like to ask early in this conversation for those of you who have, the marketers on the panel, to give us examples or your favorite example of using content as a driver of a marketing program or campaign. So, Susan, why don't you start?
Well, the most recent one I'll use, and it's now the second time we've done this, but we had an event that was always our main customer event. There were about 15,000 people come, and last year we decided to make this entirely virtual as well as in person, and to make every bit of the 700 presentations available as live webcasts, and to allow social media and input into the conversation at the event through the web. And we also turned that event into a broadcast that had real broadcast quality interviews. We brought in our media partners to participate in the conversations. We brought in our other partners to participate in the conversation. And 2/3 of the content was our customers presenting about how they use our brand. And that turned a 3-day event into a 365-day event. That was our biggest and first example.
And did you take that content and distribute it through traditional paid media, for example?
We have some of that content that go into demand gen programs when they're relevant to a particular product. And we also have a YouTube channel, so we distribute on that as well as our own site.
Susan?
So there are several examples I could offer, but let me give you the most recent one that really took us by surprise, which was we launched a program called Small Business Saturday. And the essence of that program was that we wanted to create the awareness among American consumers that small businesses are a really vital part of their community. And we wanted to create a program by which consumers could really think about giving their hard-earned holiday shopping dollars to small businesses. So we created this concept, Small Business Saturday, which sits squarely between Black Friday and Cyber Monday, right after the Thanksgiving holiday. And we did this actually by using Facebook. And what took us by surprise is we put lots of information about favorite small businesses, best ways to market your business, and it just took off. We had a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, energy, and built the fastest growing fan base up to that point on Facebook through this kind of effort. So sometimes if you can put your content out there and really strike a chord with what's really current at that moment, you really can light a match.
Right.
The one that I'm thinking of that I think we've had the biggest learning and probably the biggest impact this year was what we called our Eco-Imagination Challenge. And it was basically an open innovation challenge. And I think the lesson for us was create a platform or a forum and let others create the content. And for us, it was teaming with 4 venture capitalists and coming up with a commitment of investing in startup ideas. And then we invited people to come in and sort of comment on the ideas, and what happened was magic. I mean, first of all, we gave voice to a lot of startups from around the world, and then people became enthusiasts for this solar idea versus that water idea. And then this community developed where people were coming in and saying, hey, you know that idea with solar, it would work really well with this idea over here for local generation. And they were doing their own business development and networking. So out of it for us has come a lot of ideas that between GE and our VC partners we're going to fund, but this incredible community that we were able to tap into and then incorporate and make the ideas better going forward. And I think it's just changing the way we're going to engage in communities of conversation going forward.
Well, all of these ideas strike me as what you're doing is the essence of what a traditional publisher, and I don't mean that like necessarily on paper per se, but a traditional publisher is a curator and a leader and a voice in a community. And a community forms around that publisher's point of view, that publisher's offerings. And in each of your examples, you are in fact that publisher. You're the publisher of Small Business Saturday, right? You're the publisher of Eco-Imagination. You're the publisher of the content for those 3 days with those 15,000 people. What skills did you not have that became evident as you attempted to do this? And what might lessons learned from trying to execute this when you possibly fell down during this process?
Well,
If you fell down, I don't want to assume you did, but...
We fell down many times. I think one of the things, I'm still struggling in my head whether I think we're ever going to be publishers. That's a whole other discussion. But I think in this case, we were a convener. And it's slightly different. And I think we had to be good listeners. You have to give up a lot of control, which I think we've all gotten our head around, but you had to be adaptive, and you had to be able to listen to the community and really incorporate them in a way that was meaningful, not just say, yeah, we hear you. Well, yeah, we hear you because we now want, in the next phase, we want you to help us select the best ideas. It's not just a panel of smart thinkers. We're now going to have the community actually help us direct where some of this money goes to. And you learn it, and I'd say one of the other things we struggled with were just some of our own biases. Again, not listening enough and needing the community to say, no, you're not hearing what we're saying. We had 5,000 business ideas. No, not 5,000 good ones, but we had a lot of really good ones. And sometimes that kind of voice of the community saying, no, you're not listening enough to this. There's something here. We had to say to ourselves, what are they telling us that maybe we're not hearing?
Well, no, I wouldn't say necessarily that brands, with all, let me ask for, no, I won't even ask for permission, I'll ask for forgiveness. Brands aren't very good at listening, generally. So you just said, you got some feedback that perhaps you weren't listening. Is that one of the skill sets that you need to develop, or that you did develop as you execute these programs?
You have to develop, and we all need to do more.
How are you doing it? Like, what actual approaches are you taking to hearing that, as Steve put it, that there's just so much feedback out there? How are you, practicing that listening?
Well, we've had a community for about 5 years, 6 years now that has 2.3 members. And
Well, I hope it's 2.3 million.
million, right.
Because that 0.3 probably.
It's a very targeted audience.
I want to meet
Really,
that
but
guy.
they are very influential. Yeah. And one of the things that's come out of that is actually a program where the community itself votes on 100 people a year to be mentors, and those 100 people become the voice back to us. And they get access to executives, they get to participate in live events, and they represent the voice of that community back. Now, of course, all 2.3 million can also weigh in, and we do a lot of other things on that community, like facilitating conversations to help with problems during questions they have about what it would be like to put an SAP system in, or ways they're using things new that other people would like to share. But we do have that advocacy from that 100, which is the voice back to us, in addition to our channels like Twitter and Facebook, which we really pay attention to as an opportunity to mine the data and listen to the conversations.
Right.